Hello and welcome to Next Valley's first Free Play Friday segment. We are going to be playing some The Binding of Isaac Rebirth on my PlayStation 4. This is Isaac Proach again. Like I've said on the website, Free Play Friday is going to change every week. It could be a series of things. It might change into something else, but right now we're just kind of doing some gameplay that is interesting while we talk about some interesting things. So, The Binding of Isaac, those of you who don't know, it is same team who made Super Meat Boy. I really enjoyed that game, huge fan of it, beat it. One of the greatest accomplishments of my game career. Dear God, what was that game just freaking frustrating. But it was definitely a blast to play through. Great idea behind it. This week, with the theme of, oh my God, I hate these freaking gurgling things. Okay. I can do this. Every time I face these things, I freaking die because of stupid bloodstones. They just piss me off. These stupid little flies. Alright, back to indie games. We're gonna be talking based on the theme of Team Meat and Mr. Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac and some other games. I think they're probably working on something else right now too. But we're gonna be talking about indie games and what they now mean to the industry. Indie games, I'm a huge fan of them. They are a great way for independent teams to make great content and to kind of provide a different way of playing and also just a varied experience, shying away from the first party and third party games, the big budget first person shooters, the Call of Duties, the Halos, the Destinies. I mean, sure, those are great, but you gotta have a little variation in your life. And indie games provide that. Now, what's interesting to me is how indie games are defined. If, like right now I'm looking at a definition of it, it says, independent video games, commonly referred to as indie games, are video games created by individuals or small teams generally without video game publisher financial support. Indie games often focus on innovation and rely on digital distribution. Indie game, the definition of an indie game, what in the world? I look ugly as hell. Okay. Binding of Isaac. Not really sure what happened to Isaac. He's bloated. Indie games, I've heard different things about them, and I'm going to give you my input on them, and feel free to share yours, and just think about what they mean to the market and industry as a whole, because video games, as you probably know, it's a huge industry. Billions of dollars go into it. Billions of dollars come out of it. It's growing to this day. Console gaming is on the rise, and there's just a lot to be talked about and said. Indie games are definitely a part of it that need to be considered. The definition, I agree with certain parts of it, but I disagree on some of them. The parts I agree on, oh, did not mean to step on that. Okay, I'm looking at my computer screen and doing this. I don't know what this thing is. It's weird. I really like the art style in this game, and it's nice to see, like, I don't know, it's simple mechanics, but done well, and the presentation is, of course, awesome. So, indie games are definitely, I agree with them, created by individual or small teams, because a lot of these smaller teams, just a few people, make great games. I agree with the fact that they're generally without financial support from a publisher. That, I'm not sure the logistics of it, but I'm sure they get some support now, especially with the rise of them. The last part of the definition says how, oh my God, I died again. I tell you what, I am just terrible at this game. Restart. Okay, the last part of the definition, it says they often focus on innovation and rely on digital distribution. Digital distribution is a huge part of it. Saves money, cuts out the middleman, doesn't require huge costs for marketing and distribution of it. It just is all done digitally. Excuse me. The next part is innovation. I definitely agree that a lot of these indie games, whereas like when video games first started coming into homes, they were new, they had fresh ideas and just new concepts that people had never seen before. Like, I'm sure when the first Mario, granted I'm very young and so was not alive during this time, but I'm sure when the first Mario came out, the idea and mechanics behind it were just mind-blowing and groundbreaking, which Whereas Mario and all these games are becoming these huge big budget titles, the indie games are now replacing them with their innovation and the mechanics, because I definitely feel that most indie games have stronger mechanics behind them. And in mechanics, I mean that the gameplay and how the game works and the ideas and what makes it different and unique definitely are stronger points than most big budget games. What does that do? I don't know what that does. Not really sure. A red pill, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, as I was saying, the indie games provide the market with new ideas and fresh concepts. Granted, these bigger games are definitely coming out with new ideas and concepts that are helping, like the new Lord of the Rings game, Shadow of Mordor, and the Nemesis system, I think is what it's called. I haven't played that game yet, but I've heard great things about it. The system with how enemies rank up and improve is definitely new. But indie games as a whole, since they're all digitally distributed, they have such a large market to compete with, and they aren't receiving this sort of attention, so it's harder to get these games to become successful without having amazing ideas or great concepts that work, or just gameplay that brings people in, keeps their attention, keeps them playing once more. So, as for the definitions, those are parts I agree with. The disagreements for me are the fact that we don't see a lot of financial support from them, but I feel like a lot of indie games are becoming bigger now, and they are getting financial support, even though that's just a minor aspect of it. So, just overall, I want to hear your thoughts on indie games and just showcase some of your favorite ones. And definitely, I think what I'm thinking about doing is changing one of the weekly events for the site and making it strictly about indie games and smaller budget titles, so that those get more of a showcase, because I definitely feel like the market as a whole in the industry is moving forward at a very fast rate, but the biggest thing for us to focus on is the indie games and the smaller titles, because of the rise of mobile gaming and just the fact that these indie games have such great ideas and concepts behind them, and the teams behind them deserve a lot of credit. But on the same lines, definitely don't turn your back to the bigger games, because ultimately those are the games that are the bigger titles are the games that push the technology and the software behind it, and just the graphical side and the just sheer scale of gaming. Whereas the indie games are smaller tidbits and little tiny bites of great ideas that play well, provide new gameplay elements, but don't push the technical limits to the point, just with how much the bigger titles do. So yeah, let me hear your input on that. And then also, we'll talk a little bit about indie games that have done well and what I think is important for these companies to realize as they, because, okay, for example, the Behemoth made Alien Hominid. I never really played it, but it was successful and popular. And then they made Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers was a huge game on Xbox Live Arcade. And Castle Crashers, I feel as if that's the pioneer of indie games and the father of digitally distributed games that really compete with the larger games, because if you look before that, Xbox Live had smaller puzzle games and just it had Hexic, Uno, Zuma, different things like that. PopCap was releasing things. But then Castle Crashers came out, and that changed the market, because once Castle Crashers came out, that was my aha moment where I realized that these games have huge potential, and you don't need the huge budgets and huge teams to make good games, because ultimately Castle Crashers was an awesome game because of its mechanics and the ideas behind it and the multiplayer aspects, and it was just fun to play. If you look at these bigger budget games, it's kind of a shame because all this money goes into it, and then a game flops, and it just all that money is wasted and lost, and these teams are forced to shut down and just close. So indie games provide a way for developers and people in the industry, the talent and the great minds with the great ideas. It provides them with a way to experiment, release new ideas. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and sure, it's not successful, and I'm sure they lose money, but they're not losing it on the scale of the larger games. And just another note is that these indie games that come out, they don't have the marketing appeal, but I feel like with the rise of mobile gaming and just how many people are gaming now, even if they don't realize it, like people could say, I find it funny that people will be criticizing the gaming culture and say, I don't know how you sit around and play video games all day. God damn it, Larry Jr., fuck you, Larry. Oh my god. Okay. The Binding of Isaac is definitely challenging, as you can see. I'm not really getting one. But yeah, people criticize and say, I don't understand how you play these video games all day. But then these are the same people that are sitting on their phone and playing a video game for hours on end, or getting addicted to like the Flappy Birds, the Angry Birds, the AAs, all of these, the Trivia Crack. People don't realize that those games are video games, and they appeal to the sense that gaming is a much larger scale of things now, whereas it's the go-to entertainment process, and people are starting out playing them younger. People are becoming more exposed to them. Now games are just a household thing, so indie games definitely provide a way for companies to experiment, try new ideas, and push the what the explosive diarrhea. I did not mean to do that. Push the creative side of gaming further. So yeah, we are going to close this week's episode of Free Play Friday. I'm sorry the gameplay kind of sucked. I honestly died and didn't get very far, but share your thoughts on indie games. I will be posting updates on the site. We will be continuing to release new content, so please, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please share, subscribe, and until next time, see you.